South Carolina versus Alabama, we got to see what some could say is really the best pass rush in the country. Hunter, film guru, film god, some would say, was able to kind of watch some of this game and really just dive into some of the defensive stats. I mean, I think right now they have the SEC sack leader, and so talk to me a little more about this SC pass rush and where they rank in the nation.
Yeah, and I do think that they are one of the best pass rush units in the country, and I'll preface all of that with kind of saying who I think is right there with them. I think it's Michigan, Ohio State, Ole Miss, and Texas that are right there in that bundle of who is the best pass rushers, and I think that helps us fledge out who is maybe number one. Looking at South Carolina, what they've been able to do against good O-line play has been incredible. And it is Kyle Kennard, it's Dylan Stewart. They're two of the most electric guys in college football from a pass rush standpoint.
Yeah.
And they're doing it every play. Yeah. So that's where I think is different when you're looking at some of these guys that maybe are above them on your radar of pass rushers. The fact that Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart are running at the quarterback damn near every play, it's not disguised. Like they're going right at him and you just can't stop them.
Yeah.
Against this, they played against LSU's O-line well. They played against Alabama's O-line and gave Milroe, Heisman contender, the worst game of his career, pretty much. I don't want to say guaranteed he's not going to New York, but I mean, took him out of that conversation for the most part. And, safety, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss for Kyle Kennard. They looked electric. I think some of the other teams are doing well, but it's not just those 2 guys, TJ Sanders, Tonka Hemingway. I mean, the front line of this game is why South Carolina was where they were.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, and when you look at this front line being able to control the tempo of this game, right, gave Alabama kind of some fits from a rushing defense perspective or from a rushing offense perspective. Kyle Kennard is everywhere. He almost has like an offensive like impact in games, right? He's forced 2 forced fumbles on the year. Opportunities, for South Carolina to find their offense in better positions to score. And so for this defense, to me, they are the neutralizer to keep them in some of these games.
They are. Yeah. And if Sellers didn't fumble away this game at times, like they could have ran away with it with how much pressure that they were putting on Milroe.
Yep.
And just there was multiple times that they were running free.
Yeah.
I think part of that was on their ability, but Alabama was trying to almost scheme away from those guys. Like, let's push the line away from him and get there before he can get back there because we know we can't stop him. And it's an Alabama O-line that's awesome. Now, to flip it, Ole Miss has done well. We've talked about them numerous times at what they've been able to do to getting to a quarterback. They weren't really able to do it this past weekend against LSU. And that's why LSU won that game, I think, is that they kept Nussmeier clean. Michigan, I'd say, is probably the only one that I would put as a contender for number 1 with South Carolina. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, 2 guys that are going to the league. They're unstoppable. Josiah Stewart. They've played decent competition. They played Texas. They will play Ohio State this year, so we'll see how they look there. I think that South Carolina can definitely, fight for that spot at who has the number 1 pass rush. It's between those 2 to me.
Right. And South Carolina has some really strong tests on their resume, like to show that strength of that defense, right? I mean, that Kentucky defensive performance is just aging like good wine. Like it is just dominant. We saw them just absolutely, putting Brock Vandagriff in situations where he wasn't comfortable. And that reflected in some of the passing stats there, just from that pass rush. Michigan, that's what they do, right? They produce guys like Rashad Gray over there. And you talked about Kenneth Grant, who's playing right now for Michigan. For Ole Miss, it's obviously they built a lot in the portal on the defensive line, on the defense in general. And so respect that, for a lot of teams, they should be lucky Kyle Kennard as a senior. So he might not be back next year, but they got to deal with Dylan Stewart for a couple more years here. For a while. And for the Gamecock fans, hopefully he stays in that garnet and black. But definitely to me, you can make the case. I'll give it to them because they're in the SEC, but I'm sure people might feel otherwise if they're the best defensive line unit in the country.
Yeah. When it comes to pass rush alone, there's been some run stopping things for both these teams, but just looking at getting to a quarterback and making him have a bad day, they are able to do it. I mean, they're going to go against Oklahoma next, which is a team that if you can if you can disrupt the quarterback because of how poor their offense is, like it'll be interesting to see what South Carolina does in that game.
It will be, and that was a game I think beginning of the season. I think I had Oklahoma in it, but it's with that South Carolina defense and that nasty, pass defense and pass rush specifically, could be some really tough challenge for Michael Hawkins.